everybody. If you haven't been here before, my name is Ramsey. This is the Rogerthon YouTube channel. Wanted to do a book review on The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, the second book in my favorite series of all time. I'm finally doing a listen through on the series. Kind of wanted to go through my thoughts, not spoil anything up to this point, but I may mention some things where it's like, oh, later in the series this happens. I'll try not to. If I catch it, I'll edit it out. But I have read the whole series, almost every book twice. The last three I've only read once. So doing a listen through, hopefully that comes through. My deep love for the series. I am probably a bit biased. I started reading the series when I was 14. So yes, I may be a little biased. I'll try to find the negatives, but man, I really love this series. The reason I wanted to do a YouTube channel was to dive in and give my opinions on things about my favorite books. And that's why I really love the in-depth book discussions. I know it sucks because I'm spoiling so much, but if you've already read the book, for me, it's one of those things where I want to come on to YouTube and see what somebody else thought about this particular thing. And I understand a lot of people don't want to spoil things because they feel like, this or that. And I understand that these videos don't get as many views because it does spoil so much. But this is the heart of what I wanted to do. And I hope you guys enjoy this. Let's hop right in. So The Great Hunt, which is book 2, great cover on this one. He's holding up the horn. I think that's really cool. It's definitely one of my favorite covers in the whole series. There's a couple that just really show what's in the book. If you watch my first video, which I'll link above, I talked about how that book cover really didn't even go. And I understand that illustrators do not get the whole picture, but it's always so cool to see the vision of a book really given in the illustration on the front cover. For me, The Great Hunt is probably one of the top 3 of my favorite books in this series. I find it so enjoyable because it's mostly a linear story, but the way that it goes, we're doing a chase basically. All the characters split up, but then they all end up in the same place again, which is really neat. And that's one of the coolest things that I see here. Robert Jordan usually can take his characters, split them apart, let them have their own thing, and then they'll come back at the end and they'll work together for their final goal. Even if they're not directly working together, they at least all matter in the final part of the story. I think that's beautiful. I love the way he does that. I think the way that Robert Jordan does these prologues in book 1 and book 2 have been phenomenal. He confirms for us that the Black Lodge is a real thing. He gives us Shannarians, which immediately comes into effect that they are dark friends, as we're in this dark friend meeting where they're all trying to be covered up. We get a child of light, the Inquisitor, who is always seeking out people's secrets. So he's looking and finding. We get his perspective and how evil he is. We meet him later in the story. Everything in this prologue means something. That all these dark friends know what Mat, Rand, and Perrin look like at the start of this book. So, you've got an amazing and interesting thing where all these dark friends know who they are, and then they have to go through this whole series not knowing who these dark friends are. And then as we get to the very start of the book, he starts it in a very similar way. So you get the same similar feeling. You get this beautiful jump into the world where it's not like, hey, here's the action, here's what we're doing here. It just basically gently lets you into the story. I'm going to read it for you real quick. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend that then fade to myth and are long forgot when the age comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of doom. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. Born among black knife-edged peaks where death roamed in the high passes, yet hid from things still more dangerous, the wind blew south across the tangled forest of the Great Blight. A force tainted and twisted by the touch of the Dark One. The sickly sweet smell of corruption faded by the time the wind crossed the invisible line men called the border of Shannara, where spring flowers hung thick in the trees. It should have been summer by now, but spring had been late in coming, and the land had run wild to catch up. New come, pale green bristled on every bush, and the red new growth tipped every tree branch. The winds rippled farmers' fields like verdant ponds, solid with the crops that almost seemed to creep upward visibly. The smell of death was all but long gone before the wind reached the stone-walled town of Faldare on its hills, and whipped around a tower of the fortress in the very center of the town, a tower atop which two men seemed to dance. Hard walled and high, Faldera, both keep and town, never taken, never betrayed. The wind moaned across the wood shingled rooftops, around tall stone chimneys and taller towers. So you kind of get a small recap where, winter had lasted way too long, and then when they did what they needed to do in book one, they spring just started and was running and running wild. Kind of gave you that little hop in that you needed, told you where you were, set the story. I imagine, as a play starts, right? You think of curtains rising. They tell you a little bit about the scene. The scene opens up, and you get a great picture of what you're gonna see in that story from that point on. What a marvelous way to tell a story. I love Robert Jordan for this. He was one of the greatest describers of things. He helped craft an imagination for me where in describing things, I saw them in my mind's eye. And I love that so much. I've listened to interviews from artists from the Jordan estate where he was so descriptive that they were able to accurately draw the characters in the way that he thought they would be. And it's so neat because a lot of times you have questions, and Jordan does such a great job of helping you get to that answer. One of the things I really enjoy about Robert Jordan too is he doesn't give you everything right away. Like Rand has to learn how to use a sword. He struggles with his ability as a swordsman. I hate when authors just all of a sudden this character is great at something, and yeah, people have natural talents, but sword fighting is definitely not one. I couldn't pick up a sword and do very well with it. So right away, we get introduced to all these new characters. We get the Amerlin seat that comes in and really gives you the grand scale of who she is. I mean, I think of like the trumpets and everything, glaring, and Thaldara all, stopping what they were doing to be ready for this lady to get there. And then man, I'm saying that wrong. Suan Sanche. I imagine her with a Cajun accent, and I hope in the show they give her one because I just imagine her, blessing you out, talking about fishing stories. The few times I've been to New Orleans, it's just been, that's who I think of Suan Sanche as. And then Padan Fain is really, really cool in this book. You get such a new perspective from him. You get his mind where he's just totally nuts. As he escapes, he is vicious. He murders people. You spend any amount of time around him, you're corrupted. And that's crazy. Like to think that he just turns people to his side if you're just around him long enough. And then when he nails the Murdral to the door, oh my goodness, we've spent so much time like learning how dangerous these creatures are. And little Padan Fain nails one to a door through where his eyeball should be. That's insane. Like, as he was alive, he did this. Like, how did, he, I understand he gains this power from Mordeth, but it feels like not only did he fully accept Mordeth, they're working together. Like, it's not a full transition. He wasn't completely overtaken by Mordeth because it feels like Padan Fain wanted Mordeth. And then he's got this control over Machin Shin, the Black Wind, that he can make it do what he wants it to do. That's nuts. And what a cool character. I am really excited for more Padan Fain. He's become like an alternate villain that it adds so much to the story, and I'm really excited to see more from him. I did not at all like how Rand talked to his friends right there as they're going to leave Faldara. I find it so out of character for him, and I really wish that they handled it in a different way. I know he thinks he's going to die, and I know he thinks he's going to go crazy and kill everybody, but it's one of those things where it's like you're really changing the way his character has been presented to us, that he would do anything for his friends. And I like the way that Robert Jordan pulled it back and had Padan Fain take the dagger, so he had to go help Mat. He couldn't just run away. He couldn't leave and just try to live in the desert alone or wherever he wanted to live. And then Hurin has I'm probably saying that wrong too. He has such a cool ability where he is a sniffer. He can smell the evil that other people, he can smell the evil that people have done or the violence that people have done. And cool for us, not cool for him, but really, really neat. You learn so many new ways that Robert Jordan has created these abilities in people. You get the Wolf Brother with Perrin. He has such a cool he he becomes much better at his wolf brotherness through the series. It's really really interesting to see, the different ways that he wants to use magic, the way that he's using the portal stones, and we travel through the portal stones with loyal, saying that wrong too, I bet, her and Rand, and then we meet Selene, who, tell me, I don't think anybody trusted her coming out of the gate. She just randomly shows up. Pretty sure she pulled them into the through the portal stone. Um, Wants him to get glory every chance she can get, and then all of a sudden mysteriously disappears. She has this ability to figure out how to open the box. Uh, No way anybody trusts Selene. She's got to be a bad person. I just don't understand where at this point her um, allegiance lies. But the cool thing about Huron, when he's in that alternate world, Rand really learns he can be a leader. I think that was a great way to do it. Basically, Rand was taken in a situation where he was just automatically assumed to be the leader. And he was like, no, this is not me. This is not what I'm about. And he realized that Huron really needed somebody to lead him and tell him what to do. A totally competent guy that could have done it all on his own, but was so unstructured in the idea that we need to have this chain of command, and wanted to be led. And Rand learned he could lead people. He could make decisions. He could make that hard choice. He struggles with it, but he started to grow into that character that can make those choices. And he, throughout the story, we learn so much more about how he's having to make these choices. And it's neat to see him grow up a little bit in that. I really like the way that Robert Jordan uses the flame in the void to give Rand focus. And that's neat that it just goes straight into his ability to channel. I think it's a great focus technique, and I might even work on learning it myself and teaching it to my kids to help them study for tests and just stay focused on things. It's a neat way, maybe to even think of meditation. I thought that was really really cool. And then we really start to see the prophecy come through. You get the two herons on Rand's hands. I'm excited to see what the dragons look like and how he earns those. You get the one heron from the dream, and then you get the second one in the last battle. That was really cool. I think that was a neat way to draw prophecy in, where it happened, but it didn't seem like it was intentional. It was like somebody had said the prophecy years later after hearing about what was going to go happen to the character. That was pretty neat. I thought that was a really cool way to go about it, that it wasn't like a sign of something that was going to happen in that moment. Like, it didn't, when he got the first heron, it wasn't like a big pivotal moment, but it happened and then it marked him. So I thought that was really neat. And then Rand bumbling through Days Tomorrow when they get to Karen. Oh, I suck with names, I'm sorry. Karenin. Those people are liars and manipulators, and he just tells the truth, and all of a sudden he's the greatest player of the game of houses just because he doesn't play the game. They're a really neat way to show how politics can sometimes just be stupid. The portal stones were really neat to see the different alternate realities. I think it's really cool to look back through that, the multiverse aspect of things. I think the pivotal moment where Rand learned that he was probably down this path no matter what he did, where Matt saw a future where he turned his friend in, and I think that really changed his perspective through the rest of the series. I really appreciate that, because for most of the book he was pretty bad friend, and I didn't really enjoy his character in this book, even though later I love him a lot. So the other side of the story, the women go off on their whole other story. I was trying to follow one storyline, but the women go off to Tar Valon. Nynaeve goes through the trial. She hates it. It takes you through your fears. I think it was past, present, and future fears. The things that it would have been tough for anybody to keep going the way that it did that for her. We learn a whole lot more about what Wilders are and why the Aes Sedai don't like them at all. That was neat. It was really interesting to see. Basically, these people that had to be taught to channel don't like the people that learned how to do it on their own. Kind of makes sense. It was neat to see Min back. That was really cool. I liked her as a character. We get to meet Elaine, who's a really cool character as well. Really important for the rest of the series. The deepening of the lore in the White Tower is really, really cool. It wasn't my favorite part of the book, I was more interested in the chase, but it was great for world building, and without it, you wouldn't learn so much more that is so important to the rest of the series. Even when there's a part of the book that may not always keep me going, like the slower politics part of it, it's so important to the rest of the story. So I still enjoy that part of it. And Leandrin, don't like this woman at all. Who in the in so you're going to turn other women who can channel over to enslavement? What a horrible person. Let me take a step back real quick. The Shan-Chan are also introduced, which are Arthur Hawkwing's army that goes to the other side of the Armelin Ocean into Shan-Chan and then become the Shan-Chan and come back. People who hate Aes Sedai figured out how to enslave them and use them for their own purposes. And then they've got strange, weird politics, bunch of naked servants or almost naked servants, really weird culture. It's like you let a bunch of almost crazy people go off by themselves for a while, and then they become more crazy, and then they come back. So when Leandrin takes Egwene and Nynaeve and Elaine and Min through the ways, it feels so much through the first two books just like a fast travel system. Like Robert Jordan was like, all right, I want to do this, and then all of a sudden they need to be to the other side of the map. Let's use fast travel, and but fast travel with consequences, right? So they get them to the other side, and then Elaine is immediately captured. Poor girl, just I couldn't imagine being mercilessly beaten, and then just oh man, it sucked. I felt so bad for Elaine in this book. It gives her PTSD like crazy for the rest of the series. I couldn't imagine. Not only are you enslaved, you're not even allowed to control your own body. As a slave, at least you could fight back. You know what I mean? Like, that level of slavery is so much worse because not only could you, like, you could see the method of your slavery hanging on the wall and couldn't touch it. That's crazy to think of, just a level of enslavement that you just couldn't even fight back against. You know, oh, so awful. So I'm glad the girls, Nynaeve and Elaine and Min, really just have the ability to kind of come together. I know Min kind of supports Elaine through the whole thing. I think it's great that they pretty much rescue themselves. So I thought that the guys were coming, so they're going to rescue Elaine, and in that they actually have the girls rescue Elaine and don't need the guys. Don't even really realize they're there until after the battle is fought. Then we jump in, and when Mat blows the horn, that is so cool to see all the heroes come back, to really see Rand's destiny talked about when Arthur Hawkwing was like, hey, Lews Therin. It really solidifies the fact that he is who everybody thinks he is. And neat to see all the heroes we've kind of heard about in the stories. And it's neat on a re-listen to, because you hear about heroes that hadn't been mentioned up to that point, and you kind of get like, oh man, this is cool. Robert Jordan laid this out and then told us about it 6 books later. So it was really, really neat to see that. That was super cool for me. And then one of my favorite parts is the redemption of Ingtar, where he really wonders if he can make it back to the light. It feels like through the whole book there's something going on with Ingtar, so it's really neat to see him get that final back to the light. Hopefully he was redeemed. We never get a good idea if he was, if you can stop being a dark friend, but it's neat to believe that you could be. And I think that's what's great about learning about Ingtar, is that not everybody who becomes a dark friend stays a dark friend or even wants to keep being a dark friend. So that's really neat, and I think it's great that this book added that in there, where we kind of see his redemption. And he sacrifices himself. And I think that was great. So final thoughts on this one. I loved it. It's a fantastic change of scenery. I felt like book 1 was kind of a homage to Tolkien and the people who did a lot of great classic fantasy. And then in book 2, he moves into his own. We do a whole new setup where we're on this chase of this evil guy. Basically multiple villains are in play. We have Shan-Chan, we have Padan Fain, we have the Dark One, we have Balsamon, we have all these different bad guys, and our people are bumbling through it, trying to make their way. Liked what the girls did with their training, liked what the guys did, learning about stuff, liked the way the story concluded with the big fight. What a fantastic book. I love it. I am so excited to keep going through this series, listening to them on Audible. If you want, I'm going to put a free trial for Audible services down in the description. You can click that link. Also, I'll put the link to buy the book if you want it. Follow me on social media if you want. Trying to do Goodreads, trying to do Twitter, all those things, make them a little bit better, a little more interactive, because I'm only doing videos twice a week, doing one Sunday night and Wednesday night. Excited. If you like what you saw here, please subscribe to the channel. Going to keep doing the listen through on the Wheel of Time, get ready for the TV show to come back out. Really neat to hear how things are pronounced. For a long time, I thought Egwene was Egwene. Nynaeve, I think I had that right initially. Nynaeve, not. I suck at pronunciations. But it's really neat to see how things are supposed to be pronounced, because I'm assuming that the narrators talked to Robert Jordan about it. And so for me, it might help me pronounce things correctly. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Tell me what you think about the video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.